Thank you, Saheli. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the compas that are joining us in this very important webinar under the current circumstances. So before jumping into the task that was assigned to me, I want to round out a few ideas that were already mentioned by the previous panelists, but I believe that it's important to round it up a little bit. One of those ideas is the geopolitical context of this development. And it's important what Carlos said about this being a part of this new geopolitical war situation with the decline of the US and the rising of the global South and the BRICS and other countries in the world scene. So in that context, I believe that is important to somehow I categorize the geopolitical situation of Venezuela like in three levels. The first level is, that one, the context of the contradictions and the fight between the U.S. that wants to keep its dominance over what it considers its, back. How do you say that? The backyard of the U.S., Latin America, and the resurgence or the rising of China or even Russia and other countries in the world scene. So we have to analyze what is happening right now in that context. The U.S. is realizing that it is weakened and it is pointing its guns towards Latin America in order to secure the things that they have been considered for decades or maybe centuries, that is their area of influence. So that is what happening right now in the first level. The second level is a level of resources that is also interconnected with the first one, which is the reality that Venezuela is a country with amazing natural resources. Well, the most important is the oil one. So that's the second level of the geopolitical context that is affecting the current situation. And the third level, the way I see it, is the level that I call it the level of the bad example, which means, between quotations, of course, which is like the bad example of being anti-imperialist country in Latin America within this context. So we have Cuba, we have Nicaragua, we have Venezuela, countries that have been always being anti-imperialist. And of course, that's not a good thing if you see it from the side of, imperialist US. So those are things that I believe that is important to highlight, because that give you an idea of what is happening in terms of geopolitical issues. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is that and the previous speakers also mentioned it, but I believe that it's important to say that the military in Venezuela has been acting very responsibly in the face of this aggression, and we have been having all these military drills, of these military trainings, of these integration exercises between military, militia, and the communes, and those things has been happening without creating this sense of alarm or panic among the Venezuelan population, and I believe that that's something that have to be recognized to the leadership of the Venezuelan military and the Venezuelan government and the Bolivarian revolution. So that's something that is important, and also it's important to say that amid the negative sides of this aggression, of this situation, the current threat has been pushing the Bolivarian revolution and the institutions of the Bolivarian revolution. I'm talking about the military, the militia, and the communes, to integrate in a more in-depth way and in a ways that we might not have dreamed of months ago. So what I'm trying to tell you is that because of this aggression, the level of integration and unity that has been raising among these three institutions that are key for the preservation of the Bolivarian revolution has been reached incredible levels, and it's something that we have not talk too much about it, and it's important to highlight. The other issue that I wanted to highlight that Francisco mentioned is that far-right Venezuelan politicians are deeply interconnected with narco traffic networks. And that's one of the weirdest things that are happening right now. I mean, the U.S. is accusing Venezuelan authorities of being drug cartels or whatever, when in reality, the U.S. puppets in Venezuela are the ones that have clear linkages with narco trafficking. I mean, and that has been proven in recent months with several, intelligence operations that has been carried, showing the connection of the far-right Venezuela with drug trafficking in Colombia, in Ecuador, and also with the DEA. So it's extremely important to see that as an important element to highlight. And another important thing is that that issue about the drug boat, the drug vessels, that we hate to call them vessels because they are actually very small boats that we don't know exactly what they are carrying, but the US say that they are carrying drugs, but those boats are not aiming to the US, first of all. Those are very small boats that cannot travel to the US without a very complex logistical apparatus. I mean, experts say that a small boat like those ones that has been struck needs like 20 full recharges if they want to reach the coast of Florida or the south of the U.S. So most of those boats were on their way to the Eastern Caribbean, mostly to Trinidad and the small islands in the south of the Caribbean. And usually from there, if we're talking about drugs do not go to the U.S. They don't. They actually, most of those drugs goes to Europe. So that's to give you a context of what happens in reality within the drug trafficking, situation. And all the speakers before me also mentioned that Venezuela is is a marginal actor in this narco trafficking issue. Only experts say that only 5% of the drug that is not produced in Venezuela, because Venezuela has been declared a territory free of drug crops, passes. I mean, the Colombian cocaine passes through Venezuela to the north. Only 5% of that cocaine passes through Venezuela. So it's a very marginal actor, and that's why the narrative of the U.S. War on drugs against Venezuela is very weak. So I wanted to highlight those things before jumping to what I was assigned to me, which is the Latin American far-right support to Trump's military aggression. And in that sense, I want to talk about Ecuador, of course, Argentina, Dominican Republic, Paraguay, partially designating almost simultaneously with the Department of State, the Cartel of the Suns, like a narco-terrorist organization, in a few days after the U.S. Department of State did it. So what I'm trying to tell you with this is evident that the U.S. sent a letter to these countries and order them to do that, to designate the Cartel of the Suns like a terrorist organization to try to create an echo. And that's usual practice in U.S. diplomacy. You want to dictate their puppet countries in the world what to do and what not to do. And sadly, we see Ecuador, Argentina, Dominican Republic, Paraguay, and partially Costa Rica, and even also the Congress of Peru also signed something with designating the Cartel de los Soles as a narco-terrorist organization. So that's to give you an idea of how the U.S. coerce or dictate to some countries in the region, especially, of course, the far-right countries, what to do and not to do. But besides that, CELAC issued a letter a few weeks ago. It was not signed by all the countries, actually. Argentina, again, Costa Rica, Ecuador, El Salvador, Guyana, Jamaica, Paraguay, Peru, and Trinidad and Tobago did not sign that letter. But in that letter, which was not a Chavista revolutionary letter or Marxist letter, it was just a diplomatic letter in which the countries of CELAC expressed their concern about the military deployment and express their willingness to the zone of peace declared by CELAC in 2014 to be respected. So even in a very moderate diplomatic letter, these U.S. puppet countries decided not to sign, but the majority of the CELAC countries signed that letter, and that is an important way to show that even some countries that might not be sympathetic to Chavismo were signing that letter because what the U.S. has been doing in recent months is atrocious. And it's important to say that this letter happened because all these crazy strike and extrajudicial killings has been happening. So I'm pretty sure that more countries, if you ask some of those countries that didn't sign that letter a few weeks ago to sign it again, maybe some of those countries will sign it because there is increasing concern in the region about the repercussions of this U.S. tirade against the region. So I'm pretty sure that more countries, even puppet U.S. countries, might sign a new letter by the CELAC. So it's important to highlight that issue. Also, it's important to say that the Dominican Republic, according to media, they say that that country participated at least in one of the U.S. strikes, the first U.S. strikes, killing civilians in those small boats. So also the Dominican Republic uninvited Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua to the Summit of the Americas that are going to happen in a few weeks in Dominican Republic. Of course, because the U.S. is the one that decides who is invited to those summits and who isn't. So it's a good sign that President from Mexico and Colombia already said that they were not going to participate in that summit in Dominican Republic, the Summit of the Americas that I'm talking about. So I believe that that summit is going to be heavily heated by the U.S. recent developments and actions in the region. And another important thing that one have to say about this particular issue is that Trinidad and Tobago has been having a lame role in the Caribbean and among CARICOM countries in relation to what is happening right now. And it's important to say that Prime Minister Persat from Trinidad and Tobago has been saying that she is all in with the killing of drug traffickers in the Caribbean. She said that before there was this news about Trinitarian people being killed in this strike, but even after the denunciation of the Trinitarians being subjected to these killings, the Trinitarian government has not been saying a word about it. And the Trinitarian Prime Minister has been actually reiterating her commitment to U.S. operations in the Caribbean, and that's very sad, especially because people from her own country has been killed. So it's important to say that. And actually, last October 18, last week, or maybe 1.5 weeks ago, there was this summit of the CARICOM where they signed this letter similar to the letter wrote and signed by the CELAC, a very diplomatic one, concerning about the U.S. deployment and concern about the zone of peace and those things. And the Trinidad and Tobago government decided not to sign it. All the countries in the CARICOM signed that letter. There has not been too many news about that, but because there have been too many news happening and events happening, but that's a fact. So that tells you a lot about what is happening with the current Trinitarian government that is led by this Prime Minister Persad. So, just to finish, I want to talk about the international and regional reaction of this new U.S. gunboat diplomacy, and I already mentioned it, but I just want to reiterate it. I mean, there's growing concern. There's a lot of concern about the possibilities of an escalation reaching and touching citizens for more countries over the Caribbean and in Latin America. There's actually already a big impact in fishermen activities in the region, because as you can imagine, fishermen that have to take their boats to the Caribbean right now are worried to be struck by the U.S. military, and that have an impact in the economy of many countries that depend on fishery. So that's something that is important to highlight. And also in recent weeks, this aggression has been already touched, as it was already mentioned, the Colombian government, and right now there's this almost undeclared coalition of Colombia, of Venezuela, to confront this U.S. aggression. And if you ask me, I believe that Mexico, because if you read between lines the statement of Donald Trump, he has been mentioning in recent days Mexico a lot when he talks about these U.S. strikes in the Caribbean. So I'm pretty certain that Mexico is going to be next. And that makes a lot of sense, because they are actually trying to get rid of progressive, socialist, or whatever countries that do not follow exactly their orders. So with this, I just want to end my words just letting you know that Venezuela is concerned, as the speakers have already mentioned. We are not paralyzed by these threats. And we are certain that a U.S. military, all-in military intervention is very difficult, taking into consideration all the military preparations that we have been doing. And if even the U.S. there to do, decapitation strikes or surgical strikes, as they call it, against the Chavista leadership, they are going to face a very hard resistance for the Venezuelan people, and that won't end the Bolivarian revolution. Even if they succeed attacking or getting rid of the leadership of the Bolivarian revolution, Chavismo is going to remain, and they're going to have to face with that. So that's it, Compass, and thank you a lot for joining us.
I'm Michael Hudson. I'm appearing here for the International Manifesto Group. If you like this video and ones like it, please subscribe. For more information, go to the address on the screen.